production of the Mississippi State University Extension Service.
Today on Farm Week, the controversy over country of origin labeling is heating up as the full House prepares to vote and Canada makes plans to ask for $3 billion in retaliatory tariffs.
In the food factor, farmers markets. Natasha will have some tips on navigating and shopping at them for the beginner.
In Southern gardening, raised garden beds. They're practical and beautiful, and they can even water themselves.
In the markets, the latest supply-demand report came out at midweek, and the outlook for cotton remains flat.
In the feature segment, the Southeast Mississippi Livestock Association is celebrating its 50th anniversary this year. It's happened in a time period when cattle prices are at record levels.
I can remember back to the last year that there was very few weeks that we didn't gross $1 million each Monday. And some Mondays I can remember like in a couple 100,000 grossing $2 million. That's a week, per week. That's kicking some money back out into the community, to the stockholders, the producers.
Good day, everyone. I'm Amy Taylor.
And I'm Artist Forward. Welcome to Farm Week. Leighton Spann is on assignment.
The controversy over country of origin labeling is heating up.
Amy, it hadn't happened as of Farm Week's production time on Wednesday, but the U.S. House of Representatives could vote this week to repeal COOL. The law requires meat sold in the United States to say on the label where it was born, raised, and slaughtered. The bill is expected to pass the House, and then the U.S. Senate will consider it. Canada and Mexico say COOL has cost them billions. The World Trade Organization has ruled in their favor on 4 occasions. Major agricultural groups have come out for and against COOL. House Ag Committee Chairman Republican Mike Conaway of Texas is leading the fight to repeal COOL in the House. Meanwhile, late last week, Canada announced that it will ask the World Trade Organization to approve $3 billion a year in retaliatory tariffs if the U.S. doesn't repeal COOL. The products to be hit include beef, pork, rice, and wine. Ag Minister Jerry Ritz of Canada says that only a full repeal of COOL will satisfy Canada.
It's hoped that El Nino that's developed in the Pacific Ocean will help alleviate the drought conditions in the western United States. Looking to the future was on the minds of many of those who testified before a U.S. Senate subcommittee hearing. Market to Market's Mike Pearson reports.
Western drought took center stage at a Senate subcommittee hearing on the opposite coast, where 57% of the region is experiencing moderate to severe drought. Lawmakers asked the panel of state and federal officials coping with arid conditions from Mexico to Canada what is working and what needs attention. Some of the region has been locked in drought for the past 15 years. Agriculture's consumption of water in California is said by many to be as much as 80% of the precious resource. But the Golden State's Department of Water Resources breaks down the use to 10% urban, 40% agriculture, and the balance for environmental management of wetlands, delta outflow, wild and scenic designations, and in-stream flow.
It's very important to me that we look at responding to the long-term changes that are before us and the ways that we do business in managing water in the midst of this major crisis, and that we think about the paradigm shift that is in front of us as we face these warmer seasons. We need to develop 21st century strategies for water management that not only respond to the drought conditions of today, but prepare us for an uncertain future. This requires new ways of thinking and collaboration, which means exploring all options, not just incremental change at this point in time.
Low levels in Lakes Powell and Meade have a ripple effect on those dependent on the supply for everything from drinking water to hydroelectric power generation. And Arizona officials are looking for alternatives to quench their thirst for what is rapidly becoming a valuable commodity in the West.
The lower basin states, including Arizona, are help funding weather modification, cloud seeding in the upper basin to try to increase the flows there. We also are looking at potential desalination of brackish groundwater within our state.
If you can't create water from the sky, that leaves only so much of the precious resource to go around.
Water conservation is not going to create a new supply for a new demand, but it certainly can lead to saving water, be able to putting that in storage, maintaining flexibility in the situation.
In the past 2 years, California officials have made mandatory cuts of as much as 36% in water consumption. Dozens of farmers in the nation's top agricultural state are trying to meet voluntary water conservation targets. The growers submitted a proposal to plant less thirsty crops and leave some fields fallow due to what seems to be a never-ending drought. The plan calls for idling up to 25% of their land and implementing other strategies to achieve the necessary savings. Some Golden State producers are already trying to keep efficiencies high in their operation.
Well, California, because of the regulatory climate, we use every resource as carefully as we absolutely can. So we have an incentive just based on our cost of production to always use things as carefully as possible. We've installed drip irrigation on over 60% of our farm. But I think it's important, as you mentioned, not only to look at the very large projects, but also find ways to incentivize local efforts and work in collaboration with the Bureau and the federal agencies to help that along.
Well, many people like the idea of shopping at a farmer's market, but they're hesitant to try it. In this week's episode of The Food Factor, Natasha Haynes of the Mississippi State University Extension Service shows us how to navigate a farmer's market and come home with some delicious produce.
Hi, I'm Natasha Haynes. Shopping at the farmer's market is a great way to get fresh, seasonal, locally grown fruits and vegetables. The market can seem overwhelming at first, but here are a few tips to make sure your trips are successful and fun. Farmers markets are popular and can be crowded and busy, so don't let the crowds overwhelm you. For the best selection, go early. The best goods are often the first to go. Stop at each stand before making a purchase. Prices and selection can vary from farmer to farmer, so plan to comparison shop before making any purchases. Talk to the growers, try the samples. If something is unfamiliar, ask the grower how it tastes and how they like to prepare it. Bring cash. Vendors may not accept checks or credit cards. Select an amount you can use within a short period of time. Go directly home from the market. Avoid side trips. Food will decline in quality, and perishable foods like meat and eggs can pose food safety problems if left sitting in the hot car. Farmers markets are a great way to get fresh produce and have an educational experience as well. It's time to make healthy food a factor in your life.
To find out where the farmers markets are in your area, visit the Mississippi Department of Agriculture and Commerce website and click on the Farmers Market tab. We'll also have it on our Farmweek website.
Have you ever wondered how to make your vegetable garden attractive as well as productive? In this week's Southern Gardening segment, Extension horticulturist Dr. Gary Bachman will show us how growing in raised beds and adding flowering perennials can improve your vegetable garden experience.
There's been a big increase in home vegetable gardens over the last few years. Most homeowners want their gardens to provide healthy food and fit in as an attractive component to the landscape. My friend John's vegetable garden is a perfect example of this landscape integration. The garden is defined by the decorative picket fence and surrounded by a variety of tough and hardy flowering perennials. Early sunrise coreopsis has bright and sunny yellow flowers that contrast well with the tiny blue flower heads of lollipop verbena. Adding to the colorful interest are red and white hot lip salvia and the woolly blue and white flowers of Mexican bush sage. This rustic old bike along the fence serves as a piece of garden art. I really like the fresh herbs that are readily available growing in containers around the outside of the fence. John's vegetable garden is a series of raised beds. The native soil amended with compost and organic matter provides excellent drainage and is a great benefit to the plants. For watering, John has installed a clever and simple irrigation system. PVC pipe is set along the perimeter of the raised beds with 1/8-inch holes drilled about 6 inches apart. When the valve is turned on, the entire bed is watered underneath the foliage, which reduces the chances of leaf diseases. All this work is paid off with exceptional growth. Just look at how these yellow squash are producing, and the green zucchini are not far behind. John has shown us the vegetable garden can be attractive as well as productive. I hope this gives you some ideas to use in your garden this year. I'm horticulturist Gary Bachman for Southern Gardening.
Artists, a raised bed border that's 12 inches tall should be high enough for vegetables and roots. In our feature segment today, the Southeast Mississippi Livestock Stockyard recently celebrated its 50th anniversary. We'll take you there for the highlights. And now it's time for the markets with Artist Ford, and Leighton Spann is not with us today.
Well, Amy, the supply demand report came out Wednesday, but not a lot of change was expected. Also ahead this week, world cotton consumption is expected to top production next year. Prices, however, are still lackluster. In terms of this year's cotton crop, feeder cattle prices have ebbed and flowed, but have remained supported for now. Well, the June supply-demand report was released at noon Eastern Time on Wednesday, June 10th. Unfortunately, that was about the time that this week's Farm Week was being produced, so we don't have the actual numbers for you. Trading was mixed in prior trading to the announcement. Brownfield reports that modest month-to-month changes were expected from the May report. Analysts expect corn ending stocks to be up around 30 million to almost 1.9 billion bushels. Allendale's pre-report estimate placed it slightly lower at 1.820 billion. The soybean carryout estimate is expected to be down slightly at 362 million bushels. Allendale's pre-report estimate placed it lower at 340. Trade estimates also expect the year-ending wheat carryout to be about 714 million bushels. That is slightly higher than the USDA's May estimate. The world's grain carryouts for the end of this marketing year are expected to show little change from the USDA's May report. Now, prior to the June supply-demand report, analysts were looking for the U.S. cotton crop to move upward about 1.25%. Last month, the U.S. Department of Agriculture said that it expects world cotton consumption in 2015 to 2016's marketing year to top production for the first time in 6 years. DTN reports that modest world economic growth and the lagged effect of lower cotton prices are expected to support cotton consumption. What does that mean for the 2015 U.S. crop? Analyst Tom Fitzenmeyer isn't optimistic. He says to be sure to price when some short-term price bumps happen. Otherwise, prices aren't inspiring.
I don't think they're going anywhere. I think they're just going to chop and go sideways. I mean, Chinese demand for U.S. cotton is way off, and I understand there's been a lot of problems in Texas, and that gave us a little run up earlier, but that's been sort of taken back out of the market. Again, you get little $2, $3, $4, $5 pops uses to make sales on. Other than that, I don't think cotton's going anywhere.
Well, it's time for today's trivia quiz on Farm Week. How many of you actually know a farmer? And that's where our question is leading today. How many farmers are there to know in Mississippi? This is according to the U.S. Department of Agriculture. Is the answer 22,000, 25,000, 32,000, or 38,000? I'll have the answer at the end of today's market segment.
We're going to pause now for a short break on Farm Week. Coming up, we'll look at the calendar and the rest of the markets. Artist Ford reports feeder cattle prices bounce back at midweek after falling last week. In the feature segment today, the Southeast Mississippi Livestock Association is celebrating its 50th anniversary, serving cattlemen of South Mississippi.
You know what, Daddy? I think these may be the best tomatoes we've ever grown.
I think you're right. Hey, I bet we sell all of them before lunch.
Man, look at that. Let me get 4 boxes. So, how was everything? Did you enjoy those stuffed tomatoes?
It's delicious. Are these locally grown?
Yep, I picked them up at the Farmers Market this morning.
Before we get back to the markets, let's look at the Farm Week calendar. A field day focusing on helping small farmers to increase profits will be held Friday, June 19th. The hours are 10 a.m. to 3:30 p.m. The location is the demonstration farm of the Alliance for Sustainable Ag Production. It's located on Coleman Road, 1 mile west of Highway 51. That's between Goodman and Durant. A hay and forage field day will be held Tuesday, June 30th. The location is the Memphis Coastal Plain Branch Experiment Station on Coastal Plain Road east of Newton. The tour begins at 5 p.m. and ends with a meal at 6:30. Admission is free, but you must call ahead as soon as possible to reserve a plate. We'll have the number on the Farm Week calendar. Topics will include pasture weed control, sprayer calibration, current forage research, and hay production and management. Go to our Farm Week website at farmweek.msucares.com for information on these and other events. Now, let's check out this week's Farm Week snapshot.
Feeder cattle prices declined last week but bounced back some at midweek this week. Fat cattle prices remained strong, but higher corn prices last week helped shave feeder cattle prices. Stronger fed cattle futures have helped prices to bounce back some this week. At this point, Tom Fitzenmeyer looks for feeders to remain strong, although not returning to the extremely high prices of the past.
So I think that's really a function of corn and good pasture conditions too have helped support that market. Again, the feeder's up in that 120 and 122 range. That's probably going to be kind of tough to get through.
Before we end the markets today, I need the answer to today's trivia quiz. How many farmers are there in Mississippi? Well, the actual number is 38,000. The close number, the correct number, is 38,076 according to the latest Census of Agriculture taken in 2012. 13%, or 5,282 of those, are women.
In the feature story today, a golden anniversary. Over the years, the Southeast Mississippi Stockyard has seen many highs and lows of the cattle industry. Located in Hattiesburg, producers come from around the South to sell cattle, sheep, goats, hogs, horses, and even mules. With cattle prices at a historic high in 2015, it's also a golden year for the stockyard. And at its annual association meeting, Southeast Mississippi Livestock Association recently celebrated 50 years of selling livestock, supporting producers, and helping stimulate the community's economy.
The Southeast Mississippi Stockyard reveals the cattleman's way of life is not just a thing of the past. While much of the facility keeps its old-time charm, updated standards are used for safe animal handling and business management. The stockyard is owned by a group of shareholders known as the Southeast Mississippi Livestock Association. Shareholders are able to vote on decisions and matters related to the operation, as well as receive revenue from profits as a patronage. At the 50th anniversary celebration, manager Joe Johnson says the stockyard is enjoying much success thanks to record high cattle prices and hard-working staff.
It's fitting that we've had a record year this year, and I'm excited about going before the stockholders in their annual meeting and talking about it, and real proud to see that the producer will be having something coming back from Southeast Mississippi Livestock. Cattle industry is seeing record highs in value of the livestock per head, and the gross sales are being out of sight. I can remember back to the last year that there was very few weeks that we didn't gross $1 million each Monday. And some Mondays I can remember like in a couple 100,000 grossing $2 million. That's a week, per week. That's kicking some money back out into the community to the stockholders and the producers.
Johnson says that revenue is very much needed because producers' input costs are also extremely high, and monthly overhead at the stockyard is more than $5,000 in utility bills and $75,000 to $90,000 for insurance. For its golden anniversary, the stockyard hosted a huge celebration with special presentations and door prizes at the annual meeting, as well as a cookout, complete with a band, inflatable jump tent, and even pony rides. Honored guests included original association members and staff such as Hollis English, Major Darrell Jeffcoat, and Jack Minter.
We talked with Mr. Jack Minter, which was a former manager. In his eras was when the cattle was just numerous. Running one sale a week, sometimes I wonder if I'm going to get through it as manager. I don't know how he run 2 a week, but he did and done a good job. Back in the 70s, I guess, when the saying was in 74, 1 million more. There was cattle everywhere, unlike today. And this sale was run twice a week then. Above 3,000 on one day was a big sale. I think the first sale they had over that. And they sold practically all night. It was just chaos. It was just getting off the ground. Gate latches broke, cattle mixed. To get the cattle all to the proper owners was a nightmare, I understand. Versus today, normal average run would be 1,000, 1,200, and that would be with some weeks being in the 8s to 900s and some weeks being 18 to 2,000.
Johnson says some contributing factors to the improved cattle market include better genetic development, feeding techniques, and animal handling. Mississippi State University Extension Service agent Mike Keene says Extension offers educational programs and marketing opportunities to stockyards around the state.
Cattleman College just educates our producers on many different topics, anywhere from forages to marketing to breeding, reproduction. Been a big part of making our producers more successful. We've organized a lot of marketing programs in the last 12 years in partnership with the Southeast Mississippi. We do some bred replacement heifer sales. We do some board sales where we sell truckload lots, and work real close with Southeast and other sale barns.
That's a good tool for especially a newcomer in the cattle business. You're seeing a lot of newcomers today, and that's good because a lot of our older producers are getting old. Colleges, Junior Cattlemen's Association, all that is wonderful for an upcoming cattle producer to go through, and all the facts and the things they learn, education and so forth. It really applies to when they do step out.
Additionally, Mississippi Cattlemen's Association Director of Communications, Leanne Peters, explains how MCA works with producers across the state.
We work with them through beef quality assurance programs so that producers are bringing the best livestock they can to the sale barns, thus getting more money for producers and the sale barns earning more money through commissions. The association lobbies for producers on a number of different issues, not only in the state but across the nation as well. Environmental issues, health issues, marketing issues, things like that. Producers, a lot of times they need to stay on the farm and work. So they're a member of our association so that we can go out and talk with lobbyists about the things that are important to them.
Furthermore, Peters says stockyards and sale barns are beneficial to communities by creating jobs and generating money for our local economies. Joe Johnson explains the greatest factor that makes a successful sale barn.
Me and my staff, which I'm so proud of, we would be nothing without the producer. The people, the stockholders, the producers, they drive up with quality cattle here each Monday for sale. They are the backbone to us. It's the place that the producer's hard work and efforts funnels to him to receive his benefit for his work. It's a system that we're tagging cattle in, we're IDing cattle, we're setting them up for sale order. That really is an eye catcher for a stockyard to be efficient in handling cattle and getting them sold, changing ownerships, and getting them shipped to the right owner also. Big keys in running a stockyard.
As the state of Mississippi hopes to see more successful years in the cattle industry, Southeast Mississippi Livestock Association looks forward to continuing its support for producers in the future. From Hattiesburg, Mississippi, I'm Amy Taylor, reporting.
You can watch the story on the Southeast Mississippi Livestock Association on our Farm Week website, Facebook page, or YouTube. We'll also have the contact, website, and Facebook information for the company. Our website address is farmweek.msucares.com. We'll also be available at twitter.com/farmweek.
Now, Amy, I understand that your grandfather at one time was the manager as well?
Yes, Jack Minter, the one that they were talking about in the video, who they spoke with and was up there at the front, who they were shaking hands with, the guy with the cowboy hat.
I thought he looked a little like you. You know, a lot of things people don't remember is Katrina in 2005, Camille in 1969, all that damage to fencing and stuff. You know, the Southeast was instrumental in trying to get fencing materials in from other states and getting it distributed, because that kind of hit for the cattle people in South Mississippi. It could have been devastating, but they actually, you know, helped to get some people back on their feet.
Yes, that was a huge, huge undertaking.
Well, we are at the end of Farm Week for this week. On our next show, we'll have 2 feature stories for you.
See how the Teachers Conservation Workshop is teaching Mississippi educators about conservation and forestry.
You'll also see how Iowa refugees are using their agricultural skills to feed themselves as well as hopefully start their own businesses.
In the Food Factor, we'll have some summer smoothies to cool you off.
And Southern Gardening, spice up your landscape with some of these selections. For the rest of the Farm Week crew, I'm Artis Ford.
And I'm Amy Taylor. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you again next week.